When you're a teacher, it's ingrained in you to want to help others maximize their fullest potential, no matter which walk of life they originate from. For Sara Torpey, she's got 20 years of experience as a business coach and a teacher, working one on one with teachers and business owners to create profitable and thriving businesses by keeping it simple, creating systems that work, and leveraging what's already being successful for that individual business. She joined me this week to discuss her mission to make business fun, thriving, and profitable for the people that she works with. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Well, I'll oblige with both of those for you this morning. But if you're ready, Sara, I'll welcome you to the show. And I'm excited to get a teacher's perspective on business today. Great to be with you this morning, and thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, Sara, I know you're on a mission to help teachers and other business owners build thriving and fun businesses by keeping it simple. So, I'm wondering if we could start our conversation by just asking you how you do that.
Well, I think teachers are really good at doing lots of things at once. That's one of the things we learn to do as teachers. You learn how to put on 67 hats and wear them all really well. And in business, one of the things I have found is that wearing 67 hats and trying to do them all really well, just like in teaching, doesn't go really awesome. It makes it really hard. It's like trying to take a really big octopus and stuff it in a really small bucket. And that's no fun if you're like there are always tentacles falling out all over the place. So for me, what I think is the most useful thing to help people within business is going from like the 16-lane highway of trying to be everything to everyone to narrowing down to like the 2-lane road of the 3 or 2 maybe even things that matter, because that's really it. And for teachers particularly, I think one of the things that happened, I had someone say this to me earlier in the week. She said, when I started my business, I thought that I needed to put my teaching skills aside. And that's insane to me, because running a classroom and doing all of the things that it takes to teach, even if it's not a classroom full of kids, maybe it's full of adults or a yoga studio or something else, leading people in teaching is the same stuff you need to lead business effectively, like 90% of the way. And then if you're a teacher, you probably love to learn, so you're on board for the other 10% already. And also, I continually have teachers tell me they don't sell things. They're like, well, I don't know how to sell things. Listen, I sold algebra to 8th graders that didn't want it. So, like, if you can sell math or English or fractions or what have you to children who are not even on board, then you can basically do all the business things. It's just that, like, it needs to be fun and you need to be you and use the skills. So, it's all about taking the things that actually you don't love doing and doing fewer of those and focusing on the stuff that works and the stuff you love, one thing at a time.
I second the motion of teachers wearing 67 hats at once and doing a great job. So,
Yeah.
and I have to tell you, if they can sell algebra, they can sell anything, right?
Yes, I still sell algebra to college kids, and not all of them are buying right now.
So, yeah, math and I wasn't my strongest subject in school. That's why I became a journalism major.
Well, but that's just because you didn't get the chance to fall in love with it. It wasn't my strongest subject in school either. I am an accidental math teacher.
Well, sometimes we accidentally fall into our passions all at once, huh?
Yep. Yep. I didn't, it wasn't my intention to be a math teacher, but it turns out it's my spot.
So, well, you never know until you try, I guess, huh?
Completely.
So I know that you also spent 20 years as a teacher, and I know once a teacher, always a teacher, and I know you're still doing that. So I'm curious to get your thoughts also on the current state of the American education system.
Oh, I was
I'll
thinking
go
about this
pop some
yesterday.
popcorn and come back, okay?
Yeah, right. This is a really hard question, I think. I was thinking about this yesterday because as a teacher and a mom and like a human that knows a lot of teachers and lots of kids and all the things, and as somebody who's still teaching, I know that everybody puts all the love they have into the school system, right? Like we're all working really hard at doing the best we can for the kids in front of us. But I also know that the system is pretty broken, because in so many ways, so many kids aren't getting what they need. They weren't before we had a pandemic, and they certainly aren't now. It's just opened the cracks wider and made the gaps bigger and reduced equity all the way around, and taken kids who don't have a ton of support system and like really made that more obvious. So if you didn't have a really strong support system at home beforehand and you were relying on the support you were getting in school, now you're not getting that in so many places. It's hard and it is painful. And I think we're all just doing the best we can to make it through. But I think the system on a large scale, and it's nobody, like there's no blame to place, I don't think. For me, I know so many teachers that are there for love and because they want good for kids, and administrators. I have them in my family, and I know people really want to do well for education, but it's also a little like turning the Titanic, right? Like it takes a lot to change a big, unwieldy system, even a little bit, and people don't love change. But I think it's it's time to let it grow and evolve and open so that it includes more. And there are spots where people are doing amazing things, but there are spots where the opposite is really true, and so many gaps just get bigger and bigger. It's supposed to be the equalizer. That's what education is supposed to do for people, and I don't we don't really have a system right now that allows that in so many ways.
I'll tell you, I have an identical twin brother, and he hates change, so I can relate to that for sure. And I'm also curious to ask you this one follow-up question when it comes to education, because I was born with what's called spastic quadriplegia cerebral palsy. It just
Mhm.
simply means that I don't have enough oxygen in my legs to walk normally. So I'm just curious to get your thoughts on the state of the special education system, because I know for so many special education kids, education plays a huge role in their development. I know that it did for me, so I'm just curious to get your thoughts there as well.
Well, it's interesting because I grew up in the city of Syracuse in their school system. And Syracuse, strangely enough, has always been one of the, I didn't know it as a kid, but Syracuse has always been one of the areas at the forefront because of the University of Special Ed Inclusion, and always having, we always had all the kids. Like I had kids with cerebral palsy and cystic fibrosis and all the different kinds of things that kids have, all the different kinds of disabilities and reasons to be in programs. We were always all together working together. And then I worked in school districts as I got to be a teacher and found that in so many places that's not the model. And it's always been interesting to me because we did just fine, and it wasn't perfect. But I think there are so many and I'm sure you've found this, there are so many, like, what's the word, just assumptions people make about what kids are capable of
Yeah.
based on what they see. And like I know that's not true. And the system doesn't necessarily include the way it ought to. I mean, it tries, right? But unless you have a parent who's really strongly advocating, and like I continually work with friends because I have a couple of friends with kids with really serious things that the system needs to help them address. And I'm continually talking with those friends about how to get what they need and how to advocate for their kids and what words they use and how to learn those things so that they can stand on the other side and really advocate effectively. But it's a challenge for sure. I'm sure that your parents had to step up and be like, no, 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 this is what we need.
I always tell people, and I always tell myself, that you're your own best self advocate, because if people don't know what you need, they won't do it.
Correct.
So, and I'm curious, Sarah, also to get your thoughts on your message to teachers as they sort of navigate the pandemic.
Yep. I think the first thing I tell all my teacher friends lately is that I see them, like truly, like they're seen. Um, this is hard. This is hard in every direction. And teachers are magic to start with. They're like magical humans who do amazing things. And this has been like upping their magic game pretty well. Like I know the two teachers my kids have are like legit magicians. And the second thing I tell them all is that the most important gift they can give themselves, and like the thing I've been like really on with my people lately, is that the practice at this point is being as kind and empathetic to ourselves as we are for everybody else. Teachers are people that see every kid in need and every friend and every loved one, and then forget to do that same stuff for themselves, to turn that 180 degrees. And humans are bad at that anyways, but teachers in particular put the 1,000 hats first, and then they take care of them. And if like being kind to yourself is what you need to do in the moment, and those kids need to wait an hour, then you know what, that's okay. And if being kind to yourself right now looks like letting some things go and making it all be B plus instead of A plus all the time, it's okay too. Like we have to not just persevere, but come out the other side as humans who can function and love and still not be 100% burned out. Like you can't all leave teaching, so they have to have kindness.
Absolutely. Kindness goes a long way for sure. And you also say, transitioning back to business just for a second, you also said that leveraging what already is working is the key to running a successful business, and also keeping it simple. So I'm wondering if you can expand on that for
Yep,
me.
for sure. I think we are taught as humans to approach life, and when we're doing new things, to approach new things with this like fixed mindset, with this fixing approach. Like we get our tool belt and we go looking for the things that are either going wrong or could go wrong. Like we do evaluations for like, why didn't that work, and what can I do different, and how can I remake this wheel, and how do I like muscle my way through this. And really, it doesn't acknowledge all the things that are going well, and there's always a lot more going well than we think. Like this is a practice I have used with teachers when I coach them. It's what I do with my clients now. We don't talk about anything besides what's good until you've run out of things to say. And there's always more than you think. And so just even looking for all the things that are going well until you run out of them. I mean, I used to have this little form I'd fill out with other teachers, and I wouldn't let them tell me about any of their problems until we filled in the entire box of what was going well. And there's so much more good than they ever thought. They'd go like, oh, hold on, I didn't realize all that was working. Oh. And so the problems feel smaller when that's the case a lot of times. But also starting that way lets you go like, oh, okay, if that was working, it's not broken. I can just sort of adjust it rather than scrap it, throw it out the window, and start over. So that's the first part. And then I think simplicity is really doing 2 or 3 things consistently well. Like what matters in this moment? What is my goal right now? And does this thing I'm doing right now actually matter for that? And if the answer to does this thing I'm doing right now actually move me forward and answer to the goal I have in the moment, then you don't need to be doing it right now. Like we could all probably take about 75% of the things on our to-do list just straight off because they're either not things we need to do right now, they're not things that matter yet, or they're not things that are ours to do. Like sometimes I catch myself writing lists for things that my husband has to do. Like, why am I writing that list? That's his list. That's not like, what am I doing? Success is like one focus in 2 or 3 simple actions at a time, done consistently. And those 2 or 3 things and that one focus is different for every person and every business. But it's like a science experiment. We make a plan, we test some things, we make some observations, we do some evaluation, and we adjust, and then we do it again.
Yeah, I always tell people that their definition of success is always different because it's individual to them, right? So
Yeah.
don't try to rush success. That's what I always tell people as well.
Well, and like you can't define success. Your success and my success will be different. So like you looking at me and going, I'm behind, or vice versa, isn't useful because we don't even like we're not even reading the same book.
Amen to that. And I also know that you teach these lessons in your podcast, Teachers in Business, a resource for any teacher that wants to start a business. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about the platform and the message you hope to deliver.
It's funny. The podcast is really like my fun place. It's like my little 15-minute buckets of joy. It is the place where I take the things when I get a little bee in my bonnet and get all hot and bothered about some particular idea, or where there's something I really want to teach people in a process and a story that I think is really useful for them as a teacher who's in business or really just a business person who teaches. And it's really meant to be actionable. Like it's meant to be, okay, here's what the story is about. Here's why we're talking about this. Here's how it works and here's how you do it. And so, it's funny. I often try to like make them either longer or shorter, and they always run about 17 minutes, which makes me laugh. Like no matter what I do, they're 17 minutes long. That's about apparently how long they're going to run. And they're really meant to be straightforward. They're very me. I'm not overly formal as a human. That's not how I roll. So I laugh a little bit. I'm kind of goofy, and they're meant to be super useful.
And there's nothing wrong with a little consistency in life, huh?
Apparently, that's my 17 minutes.
And I know that you created an interesting way for people to embrace math through another venture that you have. So can you tell me about that?
Yep. My first business is called Extensions, and it is math and critical thinking and problem solving tasks for families was really where it started. My love is I want people to walk around the world thinking they love and can do math. As a teacher, my goal, I don't actually, and I feel like a heretic in some ways saying this out loud, but I don't actually care if the kid can multiply. I care if they know they can figure out how to multiply when they need to. Problem solving matters more than anything. Being able to think critically matters more than anything. And what I found from friends, because if you have a math teacher friend, what you do is you text them pictures of your kid's homework when you don't know how to help. Like you should see the texts I get. But what I realized was my friends didn't feel like they were capable of helping their kids because they weren't confident in math. They didn't feel comfortable, and that's miserable. And I don't feel like that's how it should be. And also the math that they were doing with their kids were bored out of their minds. And neither of those things are how math has to be. So the problem sets we build are very different. They are context driven and they are story based and they are more than one skill at a time, because like how many ways can you find the area of that rectangle on the piece of paper? It's so boring. And they're really meant for conversation and like puzzling through and thinking hard. it started out being a tool for that we mostly sell through Teachers Pay Teachers now, but it started out being a lot of homeschool families, and then everybody became a homeschool family. So that became real interesting last year. But slowly it's gotten into classrooms and into teachers' days too. And it's really just fun to create and share what I think is like the best version of math, where you get to play around with pieces and experiment and think hard about how you're thinking. And that's what we want to build for kids. And for even the adults that are like, no, I'm not a math person. That's like, I want to banish that, the whole I'm not a math person. Not how you're born. You find your way to math.
Well, you find your ways to the things you're passionate about, for sure. And I know that as a mom that you're passionate about your kids. So I'm wondering, as a teacher and as a mom, what sort of legacy do you want to leave for your kids?
So I hear you saying that I'm not going to convince you to be a math person yet. That's what I hear you saying.
Well, you can try. Others have tried and failed.
I'm pretty persistent.
I can see that.
For my kids, I really, for them, it's pretty simple, I think. I want them to walk through the world knowing that whatever they set their minds to is open to them. It just is. It doesn't matter what that is. It doesn't matter all of that. Like everything is learnable and they are capable. And I feel like that about basically everyone in the world. Everything is learnable and everyone is capable. If you put your mind to it, there are not limits and there are not rules. And the rules that people tell you exist are baloney anyways. There's always a way to do the thing you love, to be who you are, to show up and help others, and to get the life that you love to live in the way that makes sense for you. It's always possible.
Anything in life is possible. It just determines your attitude, right?
I'm a glass half full kind of girl.
Absolutely. And I'm curious to ask you, when you have about a half an hour to yourself, what do you like to do for fun?
I live in Winterland right now, but 9 months out of the year I grow things. I am a poker and prodder of plants in the garden, and plants are magical because you can plant 5 things and 3 of them will thrive and 2 of them will die, and like they don't talk back to you. Sometimes it's just the place I go for quiet, and like I can pull things out and put things down and move them around and everything works out. Like even just green bean plants are kind of magical. Like you plant a seed and it makes green beans. Like what kind of magic is that? And so for me, it's that kind of thing, but it's also just like I think my husband says I'm fueled by sunshine. So I need to be outside poking around with the dog or with the kids. Our neighbors make fun of us because we are outside no matter what the weather is. I am that mom. Like, okay, let's just put on our boots. Let's go. Even though my kids are a little older now, they'll look at me and be like, oh, okay, well, that's what we're doing now. So for me, it's outside and with friends or people or family that I just enjoy being with. It's not anything complicated.
Hey, never apologized for being an active and supportive mom. Around my house, we call my mother Madam President. So that's the way it works, right?
Yes, my son, we actually ran into an ex-student of mine last weekend and she called me professor, and my son said, "Is that your school name?" And so now he's been walking around calling me Professor Mom, which is where we're at this week here in the Torpey household.
Well, in the age of a pandemic, if you can't laugh at yourself, you can't laugh at anything, right?
No, well, and it's all kind of funny. Like it's gotta be like that's if you don't laugh enough, you're doing something wrong.
Absolutely. And if anyone wants to connect with you or listen to your podcast, how can they do that?
They can find the podcast. It's called Teachers in Business on like all the podcast places. They can also find it on my website, which is Torpey, Torpey coaching.com. Most of the ways to reach me are there, but also I'm a LinkedIn person, so they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect, or on Facebook, and my Facebook group is also called Teachers in Business. because y'all, we try to keep it simple.
And Sarah, I really enjoyed our conversation, and I have a immense respect for teachers, and I respect the work that you do. And I want to thank you for taking a few minutes to hang out with me and talk about teachers, business, and everything in between. Great to see you, and thanks for being here this morning. It's most appreciated.
Thanks so much for having me. This is great. I'm happy to share, and I'm happy to be a part of what you're building.